December 18th, 1944, near Bastogne, Belgium. Snow swallowed the roads faster than trucks could clear them. Frozen trees stood like silent sentries while exhausted American soldiers gathered inside a drafty stone farmhouse that had become a temporary command post. Maps covered every table. Radios crackled with broken messages. Outside, distant artillery rolled across the Ardennes like endless thunder. No one smiled anymore. The German offensive had exploded through the forests with shocking speed. Entire units had disappeared overnight. Roads that had been safe yesterday were now crawling with enemy patrols. Inside the farmhouse, officers argued over supply routes while young enlisted men quietly delivered coffee, updated maps, and casualty reports. Then one sentence stopped every conversation. "They're sending General Patton tomorrow." The room became strangely quiet. Nobody questioned why. If Patton was coming himself, the situation was worse than anyone wanted to admit. Near the back wall, a young private named Daniel Mercer carefully unfolded another reconnaissance sketch. He had spent the previous 2 days guiding displaced civilians through frozen woods before returning with information no one else had seen. He stared at the map. Something wasn't right. Very slowly, his expression changed. Morning arrived beneath thick gray clouds. General George S. Patton entered the command headquarters surrounded by staff officers, corps commanders, and intelligence personnel. Everyone immediately stood. "At ease," Patton said calmly. His polished helmet rested beneath one arm. His gloves remained tucked neatly into his belt. Without another word, he walked toward the largest operations map. An operations colonel pointed with a wooden stick. "Our armored spearhead advances here, sir." Another officer added, "German resistance is expected to collapse once we seize the crossroads." Patton listened. He asked only a few questions. "What about civilian traffic?" "Minimal." "The bridge?" "Still standing." "Fuel?" "Sufficient." Everything sounded orderly. Everything looked convincing. Around the room, heads nodded. Then, from the rear of the room, came an uncertain voice. "Sir." Every officer turned. Private Daniel Mercer immediately wished he could disappear. One captain frowned. Private remained silent. Mercer swallowed. "Yes, sir." Patton slowly lifted one hand. "Let him finish." Silence settled over the farmhouse. Mercer stepped forward carrying several weather-stained sketches. His boots left melted snow across the wooden floor. He looked nervous enough to faint. "Sir, I believe the attack route is wrong." The room froze. Several officers exchanged stunned looks. A lieutenant actually laughed once before stopping himself. A major whispered, "Does he realize who he's talking to?" Mercer's hands trembled. I don't mean disrespect, sir." Patton never moved. "Continue." Mercer laid his rough pencil drawings beside the polished operational maps. "I escorted civilians through these woods 2 days ago." He pointed toward a narrow valley. "This road appears open." His finger shifted. "But German engineers flooded this section yesterday." Several intelligence officers leaned closer. Mercer continued. "The ice looks solid from above, but underneath." He paused. "It's marsh now." Another officer interrupted. "Our aerial reconnaissance shows clear movement." Mercer nodded respectfully. "Yes, sir. But aircraft flew before dawn." He pointed again. The water was hidden beneath fresh snow. The operations colonel folded his arms. "Private, are you suggesting every reconnaissance officer here is mistaken?" Mercer answered quietly. "No, sir. I'm saying they couldn't see what I walked across." The room stayed silent. Patton looked down without speaking. Mercer unfolded one final sketch. Boot prints. Broken wagon wheels. Fresh water flowing beneath cracked ice. Civilian footprints leading around the flooded area. Then, German tire tracks disappearing into nearby trees. Patton's eyes narrowed. "Where did you find this?" "North of Houffalize, sir." "Alone?" "No, sir." "Who was with you?" "3 Belgian civilians." "Names?" Mercer answered immediately. Every answer came without hesitation. No guessing. No exaggeration. Just facts. Patton slowly looked toward intelligence officers. "Verify it." Within minutes, radio operators contacted reconnaissance aircraft. Another patrol was redirected. Nobody spoke while they waited. Outside, snow continued falling. Inside, every second felt longer than the last. Finally, the radio operator removed his headset. His face had changed. "General." He swallowed. The private is correct. Nobody moved. The valley is flooded. Another transmission followed. German anti-tank guns are concealed beyond the marsh. The operations colonel slowly lowered his pointer. A captain whispered, "My God." Another report arrived. The enemy appears to be waiting for armor to enter the valley. Patton remained perfectly still. If the attack had begun as planned, hundreds of American soldiers would have driven directly into an ambush. The room suddenly felt colder. Patton quietly rolled up the original battle map. No attack through the valley. His voice never rose. Rewrite the operation. Officers rushed toward tables. Pencils scratched furiously. Telephone operators relayed new orders. Messengers sprinted through snow carrying revised instructions. Outside, engines that had been warming for battle suddenly shut off. Tank commanders looked confused. Infantry units halted. Nobody yet understood why. Hours later, fresh reconnaissance confirmed even more German artillery hidden beyond the flooded ground. The original plan would have ended in disaster. That evening, soldiers gathered around small fires sharing rumors. They changed the whole attack. They say someone found a trap. No one knows who. Mercer said nothing. He simply cleaned his rifle and helped a medic distribute blankets to freezing refugees. He assumed the incident was over. He expected punishment tomorrow. After all, he had publicly challenged senior officers in front of General Patton himself. Sleep came slowly. The following morning, headquarters assembled once again. Mercer stood outside expecting disciplinary action. A sergeant approached. "The general wants everyone present." Mercer's stomach tightened. Inside the farmhouse, nearly every officer from the previous day stood waiting. Patton entered. Again, the room became silent. He looked around slowly. "Bring Private Mercer forward." Mercer obeyed. His heartbeat echoed inside his ears. Patton studied him for several long seconds. "You embarrassed several experienced officers yesterday." Mercer's face turned pale. "Yes, sir." "You interrupted an operational briefing." "Yes, sir." "You questioned my battle plan." Mercer lowered his eyes. "Yes, sir." The silence seemed endless. Then Patton asked one final question. "Were you certain?" Mercer answered honestly. "No, sir. I was certain enough to speak." Patton nodded once. "That's the difference." He turned toward every officer in the room. Courage isn't measured only under enemy fire. Nobody breathed. Sometimes courage means risking your own career to stop your own army from making a mistake. Several senior officers lowered their heads. Patton continued. "If rank prevents truth from reaching command." He paused. "Then rank becomes dangerous." No one argued. Patton looked back at Mercer. "Effective immediately." Another pause. "Private Daniel Mercer is promoted to corporal." Shock spread through the room. Mercer blinked twice. He almost forgot to salute. Patton returned the salute. "Congratulations, Corporal." The promotion papers were signed before noon. Many officers quietly approached Mercer afterward. Some apologized. Others simply shook his hand. Even the operations colonel finally stopped beside him. "I dismissed your report." Mercer remained respectful. "Yes, sir. I shouldn't have." Mercer nodded. "We all wanted the same thing, sir." The colonel smiled faintly. "For our men to come home." Weeks later, revised operations successfully bypassed the flooded valley. American forces struck from higher ground instead. German anti-tank positions were outflanked rather than attacked head-on. Captured enemy engineers later confirmed the trap had been prepared specifically for American armor. One German officer reportedly admitted they had expected dozens of tanks to enter the valley before opening fire. Instead, the valley remained silent. Snow covered untouched minefields. The ambush never happened. Years after the war, veterans remembered many famous victories. Some remembered battles. Some remembered medals. Others remembered the day a frightened private quietly said, "Sir, I believe the attack route is wrong." History often celebrates generals. But wars are also shaped by mechanics who notice strange engine sounds. Medics who refuse to abandon the wounded. Scouts who trust their eyes. And young soldiers who find the courage to speak when everyone else remains silent. Leadership is not about never making mistakes. It is about creating an atmosphere where truth can reach the highest table, regardless of whose voice carries it. General Patton understood that authority without humility can become blindness, while discipline without honesty can become disaster. On a freezing day in Belgium, One private reminded an entire headquarters that rank should never silence reality. Because sometimes the smallest voice in the room is the one that saves the most lives. What would you have done? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more World War II stories where humanity, war, and difficult decisions collided, make sure to subscribe.